Well, let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead and introduce myself and my guest today. So I'm Gina Ferrer, the productivity coach here at Keller Williams Legacy. And I've been coaching now for about 3 years and selling real estate this January for about 25. So some of that time I worked as a buyer's agent, some of the time I worked as a listing agent, and most of the time I did both. But Cindy here, and I'll let you introduce yourself, is a buyer's agent. So she's going to have a nice little spin on our topic today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Cindy Carpenter. I am a buyer's agent. I specialize in my role. I work for Jose Medina and Associates. I've been in the business for 10.5 years, specializing in buyers the entire time. I've done 2 listings in my career, not my thing. So I am very happy to help buyers find their right home.
Nice. And there is a difference between working with buyers and sellers. Some of you may have noticed, and some of us just do have a rhythm with sellers better than we do buyers. And honestly, a lot of people do both. I do both now. I still prefer sellers, but I think it gives me a good perspective when I'm working with sellers, having worked with buyers, because I know how they think, I know what they're looking for. I know when they say things, what they mean and they don't in most cases. So I try to have my sellers understand where the buyers are coming from. So it's a good idea to have specialization in an area, but I'm happy that Cindy has done some listings too, because it gives you the kind of a view into the other side of things. Most independent agents are going to do both. When you're on a team, most teams, especially big teams, are structured in a way that they have people specializing. So this way you can get really good in your area, which Cindy is. So yeah, awesome. So this is going to connect from yesterday. So we talked a lot yesterday about prospecting for your buyers and sellers and qualifying them, and what does it look like to qualify that lead and categorize them as an A, B, and a C client. And then once you have figure that out, what do I do with them next? So we lead generate for that business. Then we have to figure out, okay, I've got these people. How motivated are they? Are they able to buy? Are they pre-approved? What's their pain points? And how do I then set up a follow-up? So today we're going to roll right into, what does it look like at that point? So what do I do once I have that business and I've got this A buyer that I'm working with, and how do I take it to the point of getting them under contract? So Cindy's going to walk through that whole process with us as well. So let's go ahead and just jump right in and get started. Here. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit more about qualifying the buyer and what is an A buyer. So Cindy, tell us, like, in your mind, where we talked yesterday about an A buyer is someone that would, if they found the right property, buy within 0 to 30 days. So what does that look like for you? And like, how are you qualifying them as an A buyer? And then how are you getting your B and C's buyers to become an A buyer?
So qualifying, I'm sure everyone is familiar with LP Mama and digging in deeper. I think one of the biggest things that people don't do is dive deep. So whether you meet someone at the first time, Ken, I heard you just say that you got an Op City lead. So when you're qualifying the buyer, it's very important to not stay surface. You have to dig deep. You hear them say, everyone says, oh, this one's in Jackson Township. Is that solely where you're looking? Well, no, we would consider other areas as well. Great. Are you looking to be around a work, like a certain distance from work? Are schools important? What is driving you to be in what area? And then when they say, any random answer, and they are like, well, we are trying to stay close to my husband's work. He's tired of driving. Oh, really? What does he do? So the more questions that you ask about them, I have found people love to talk about themselves. You give them the opportunity. So it's a matter of, a lot of times in this business, we just want to let them know, like, dumping our experience on them. Well, I'm really good at my job, and I can do this and I can do that. I know all the people. But giving people an opportunity to talk about themselves, you have to make a connection to people. And that's what makes you realize this is, you can get to, are they A, B, or C a lot easier when they're comfortable with you. So my very first conversations, I'm trying everything I can to find some connection to them. And then digging deeper as far as their whys, what's motivating you. The LP Mama script is a brilliant script. And that's basically where I start to find out, are they A?
And you're a good listener. I know, we have lots of lunches together. She's a good listener. And we are inclined, a lot of us agents are high I personalities and a combination of DIs and every other thing. We need to be more in the S zone, especially when we're trying to make a connection. Like I make the grave mistake, and why I say it's a grave mistake, because I've witnessed how clients' body movements change and how they start to ignore me and drift. So I have the mistake of, when I'm trying to connect with somebody, I think telling them some experience of mine that is similar to experience of theirs is a way of connecting. But how I can tell that's a mistake is they drift. They drift even after 30 seconds. Ever sit down in your beauty salon's chair, sorry guys, barbershop, whichever, and you're telling them what's going on, and then as soon as they start telling you, you're like bored. You want to talk. This is my time. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's kind of the same thing. So be careful with that. I do have to constantly, my brain has to say stop, because I think, not because I wanted to talk about myself, but because I feel like it's making a connection. So like if someone says something that they're interested in, I want to get closer to our church, or I want to get closer to the golf course because I golf. And if those are things that I'm interested in, I might go down that path. Keep it short. You can talk about common things, just don't take the show. They want the focus to be on them. And depending on their personality type, if they're an I or a D, then they're going to take over and interrupt anyway. Right? Like I do. And if they're an S or a C, they're going to quietly look like they're interested and ignore you and start to walk away. So really, really focus on, if you're in front of them, their body language. And if you're on the phone, you're like, are you still there? So making it about them is something that we really have to work on in our personality. And I think you do a fantastic job of that, because it's a good thing to know. Again, if I'm talking to 5 agents, who's the one that actually cared enough to ask why and what I need? Right.
And it's also mirroring. Have you guys heard of that before? Mirroring their conversation. If you're talking to someone who's very fast and they're talking and they have to get it out and they have to, you can speed up your speech a little bit and kind of mirror them. If they're contemplative and pulled back, mirror that and don't be too aggressive. So learning how to mirror somebody is so vital.
Yes.
So you're not becoming overpowering, or you're not feeling like you're too pushed back.
I love that. So to you, ideally, what does an A buyer look like? So when you've decided, okay, this is someone that I need to follow up with twice a week, what does that look like?
If they are opening their portal listings, if they're actively looking every day, if they answer my calls, and I send them, if they haven't gotten pre-approved and they are open to getting a pre-approval and they've made the phone call, to me, those are really good signs. If they're lackadaisical, they're like, oh, I didn't have time this week. Oh, I'm going to do that next week. Then it's like, okay, and I'll follow up with you a little bit later, but action on their part, kind of shows me like, okay, they're ready to go. So typically I will give people one listing. I will show them one house without a pre-approval if they don't have it. And then I'm not wasting my time. Get the pre-approval, then we'll go back out. If I know, you can get, after a while, you'll get a sense of a person and what they do and how they act and whether they're going to. If I have the sense like they're going to, it's just they haven't yet because they've got 7 kids or whatever. I'll give them some grace and I'll keep showing. But action on their part, to me, and open conversations, answering my phone calls and text, their activeness shows me that they're ready.
Yeah, because there's people, in particular, people who do have really good credit. They're I'll get pre-approved when I find the house. People that are really good with their finances, people that are very, business oriented, they don't want to be told. We'll use Meredith as an example. So when I was on the team, Cindy was helping me with a potential client of mine who was gonna be a seller, also was a friend of mine. So she was gonna work with her as the buyer's agent. And she is not someone who's gonna be told to go get pre-approved. Nor is she gonna go get pre-approved unless we actually found a house. And her needs were different, right? Because she wasn't like, I have to find a house. There was no pain points. It was simply, if I find something that I like better than mine, maybe I would consider moving. So let's just look. I have curiosity. And had we walked into, and a few times I've showed her houses since I've left the team, we looked at a few things, but nothing has knocked her socks off. So she's perfectly happy with her house, not going to move then, you know. She's not going to be told to get pre-approved. So if we didn't continue to show her houses, she's going to find somebody else. So that's where the gauging someone like that. You have to know though, there's also people who don't want to get pre-approved yet because they're afraid they're going to get bad news too. So you just have to be able to be good about knowing your client and what would be the actual reason. A lot of people are afraid of their credit score dropping. And they think, well, if I don't find something and this pre-approval is only good for 90 days, I'm not going to have my credit pulled every 90 days and lose points if I don't find something. So just having the feeling, and I like that what you're saying is if they're responding and if they're actively looking and they're actively texting me back and looking at the portal, you know, it's a really good idea to be whatever you're doing to use for sending your properties to people, monitoring that and monitoring their actions and their activity on there.
And you can also, I don't know if anyone has gotten the 4-1 out from the board.
We talked about it, yeah.
If you have not gotten that, that is a vital piece of information for you, not only for your safety, but also for information like that. You know, I pulled up one, there was a buyer that wanted to see houses and I pulled them up and they had fraud in their history. And I'm like, yep, nope. And I sent them back and was like, I'm not working with someone who has, and it was recent. It's not like it was 15 years ago and their life was changed. It was recent. I'm like, yeah, that's not a good fit. So checking what I've checked Facebook before, I've stalked people on Facebook. You can get to know people and their habits and what they do and what they like and who they are simply by doing a search. And so the more resources are out there for you, and it's not a matter of stalking for bad purposes. Am I wasting my time? You know, because the longer you're in the business and the busier you get, your time is valuable. Like I want to be with my family. I don't want to be out with some yo-yo showing houses when they're not going to get pre-approved. Right. You know, it's not how I want to spend my day. So,
and it gives you and I do it with more so with recruits, honestly. I look on Facebook to see what I'm going to experience when they come in, just so I can get an idea of being prepared. And again, there's that mirroring thing. So kind of making those connections, because again, I'm going to work with someone I have a connection with. It's not just the information. However, some personality types, so like, again, I'll go back to the D personality, a high D with probably a C, no I, that is somebody who it's all about just do what I'm asking you to do. I'm not trying to be your friend and I actually don't want to make a connection. Like I pull up to the drive-through at Starbucks and I don't want you to ask how my day is. Just give me my damn coffee, right? Like I'm not trying to be friends with everybody, you know, and I don't mean that in a rude way. That's just my D personality. Are you holding my coffee hostage until I answer that question? Because they tend to say, where are you off to today? I'm on the phone. That's what I'm doing. You know, that sounds so rude, but again, knowing your personality types and what you are, and then what other people are, like, I'm not the high I who's all friendly with the person at the drive-through. Cindy might be.
I have conversations with her.
Yeah.
Like, do you have a dog? I love your hair. You look really good today.
Yes.
And Gina's like, I don't want to.
I'm like, wait, are you talking to me? I'm on the phone. I'm that person
because we're opposite.
That's right. That's right. We enjoy each other's opposite personality. and we can learn a little from each other too in that way. Questions about A buyers or qualifying them or how to handle or work with A buyers? Anyone on Zoom or in the other offices? No, if not, then moving on. All right. We're going to jump to the 7-step buyer service cycle. So let's just talk about that for a little bit. what that cycle looks like is lead to appointment. So I've gotten the lead, I've generated a lead, and then I've followed up with them. So following up with them isn't good enough. It's getting them to the next step, which is the appointment. It's really easier might not be the right word, and Cindy, you can chime in here. It changes the dynamic of your relationship if you can get in front of them. So like, I'm happy to hear, you're not just gonna say I'm only working with pre-approved buyers, because I've had many people sit actually co-hosting with me and I'm like, oh, please don't tell new people that. I wouldn't only just work with pre-approved buyers. And I like that what you're saying is you're gonna give them a chance and you're gonna read the situation. So getting in front of them gives you, and I don't know what the percentage is, but your odds increase by a huge amount that you're gonna be able to sell them a house. And
Absolutely.
so like what you need to do and how you nurture that lead and getting it from lead gen to appointment is so, so important. So can you tell us a little bit about that path for you?
Sure. So getting them on the phone and getting a yes in that way, they're answering the phone, they're answering questions, they're starting to talk is great. In the year that we've just come out of, year and a half that we've come out of, getting them to a house quickly was hard, because a lot of times before you even made it to the appointment, the house sold. So then that's in that market, I realized how important it is to get in front of them. So I would say absolutely, I wouldn't even do the whole LB Mama on the phone. I just need to get there. I need to get in front of them. That's how the timing was. So if we're not in that situation and we have time, you skip to the appointment kind of first, and then you backpedal and fill in the rest of LB Mama. So, okay, absolutely, we can see that tomorrow at 6. Is that okay for you? Sure, great. Okay, so now, it's in Jackson. Is that where you're wanting to see? Backpedal after you have the appointment, because if they are feeling like you are a salesman, they don't want to talk to you. I mean, I get annoyed, and that's where I have very little D, but the D comes out when someone is wasting my time. I don't like my time wasted. So getting the appointment by setting it, doing what they want, and then filling in the blanks with what you want. Now, I have had the house go under contract prior to me getting to the house, and I will then call and say, hey, I'm so sorry, this house went under contract, so we can't go see it today. However, I do offer a free buyer consultation. Would you be interested in that? What does that mean? So we meet at the office, we go over the buying process from start to finish. I answer all of your questions, get to know you a little bit better. You get to know me a little bit better, and I see how I can help you reach your goals. And having that conversation for a buyer consultation, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Depends on their personality. And then if they say no, okay, great. Well, I will keep my eyes open, and then I try to pour the MLS and try to find one comparable to the one that they found. Hey, this house just hit the market. Do you want to see this one? Showing that you're working for someone as opposed to just letting your auto emails filter through. They like that. So I'm here for you. What can I do to help you? Is always a good chance to get somebody to actually call you back and respond and set the appointment.
Especially with sign call people and internet leads.
Mhm.
They're like, I just drove by the house. I don't want you to interview me. I want to see the house.
Mhm.
And same with the internet leads. So speed to lead is a huge thing. So I was actually just talking to my Boomtown rep yesterday, and I said, I was having a meeting with him about, how we can make our system better. And I said, here's a question for you. Why do, and some of you probably agree and know this, why do people that get leads, agents that get leads from Opcity, why does that process go faster? Why do the lead to them getting the appointment go faster than the Boomtown lead to appointment? And I knew what the answer was. I just wanted to ask him the question so he knew what we were thinking. And he said, what I knew he was going to say is, it's a phone live transfer. Boomtown and other internet leads are not a live transfer. That's just someone who's looking on the site who requested information. It's not they called and then, picked up the phone and transferred you. But don't mistake that it's not the same internet lead. It is. The only difference is that realtor.com has a system where they're calling them immediately and saying to them, I saw that you were looking at this house. Let me connect you to an agent really fast, really fast. So that's where the speed to lead comes from. So the rest of you who are getting leads from your Facebook or getting leads from Command or in my Boomtown group, getting leads from Boomtown or your own, it's speed to lead. And if you don't have an ISA, you're the ISA, like we talked about yesterday when Brian was here. So the only difference of why people are getting quick responses and appointments and then paying 38%, I might add, to Opsity, is because somebody got to them very quickly. And then before they even knew what happened, they were talking to an agent about an appointment. So what I suggest to you is you be that person. When you get that internet lead, you've got to pick up the phone in a split second and call them.
Especially realtor.com, because it shoots out to 5 people.
Yeah.
So you're competing immediately, you're 1 of 5. So absolutely.
But better is when you are Boomtown or Command or Facebook or wherever else you're getting internet leads from, you're not competing. You're on deck. So on a round robin fashion, this is your lead. You don't have to rush because other people, you have to rush because if you want to get the appointment. And so that's in that case, there's no time for LP Mama, like Cindy said. That's when you filter that in later. Maybe as you're confirming the appointment with them, or maybe when you get to the house, right? Because they're not interested in, you're going to lose them then. They just want to see the house and they know where to connect to do that. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think what a lot of times happens, we were on a training call yesterday, our team was, and talking about, the MAPS coach was talking about, do you think that leads are followed up with enough? And the answer is no. You know, they don't answer, like, oh, they didn't answer. And then 3 days later, you're like, oh, I wonder what happened. Call them back. Oh, they didn't answer. 2 weeks later, oh, what happened with those? And she talks about going through your sticky notes in your, I have 7 notebooks. I'm trying to get myself organized in 2023.
I have 3.
I was talking to Rachel Hogue about it. I have a plan. So hurry for your sister over here. But going through your sticky notes, all your notebooks, all those places that you just jot stuff down because you're in your car, get those, compile them and call them. You know, we're always afraid of getting the no and getting turned down. Why? They gave you their number. They reached out to you for help. And when you make that phone call, realizing they need me, you know, I would rather them get me than that guy over there because he's not good. I want them to get me. And so when you make these phone calls with the mentality, I'm a Keller Williams Legacy Group agent, I come from the top. Get yourself in that mindset before you make the calls, because that's how you're going to gain the business, by putting on your professional hat and calling more than once.
Oh yeah, I mean, repeatedly.
Mhm.
I mean, I will return a call to someone for any kind of business that I'm inquiring when I'm ready. And that's not in a rude way. That's just, I don't need anything right now. I don't need anything right now. But when I do, I know who I'm going to call. There's this girl at Chase Bank. I opened up a business account in Chase Bank and she did my business account and she calls me constantly. I think she wants me to open up a credit card. And either way, I don't answer. I don't respond. I already told her no, but guess what? When I'm ready to, or I want or need anything from Chase Bank, I am calling her. So that's the point. She stays in front of me, and I don't know if she knows this, but she stays in front of me so that she's top of mind whenever I need anything from Chase Bank, I'm going to call her. It doesn't matter that I never responded. If she would text me, I would respond, however.
Yes.
So also know that.
Absolutely.
You need to know how someone prefers to communicate. I'm just never available to answer the phone and I don't return her call. But if she just shot me a text, I would say, hey, thanks so much. I appreciate all the follow-up, but I will let you know when I need something. But email me occasionally. I don't care. But stop calling. I'm never answering. I'm here in class or I'm doing something and I'm just not going to take my time to reply to someone just to say I need nothing right now. Right. So your buyers aren't going to say to you, hey, Ken, thanks for calling, but I need nothing right now. They're going, unless there's someone who's always home and they're bored and whatever, which isn't most people these days. I'm going to say, I'm not going to call you back until I'm ready and I need something, if that makes sense. All right.
And that is a good point. Call, text, email.
Yeah.
Your
Yes.
first day. I'm sorry, I was in Florida on Monday and I left an 80-degree day
Ah,
and got to a 40-degree day
Yeah.
in a matter of 2.5 hours, and this is what it did to me. So I do apologize if you can't hear me very well, but if you make the phone call and they don't answer, don't leave a message. They're not gonna listen to it. Voicemail is my nemesis. I hate people leaving messages.
Yeah.
Call, text, email the first day. Second day, call, text, email. Get a system where and maybe taper off like every other day after day 3, but don't stop until you get 3 no's. I mean, don't be annoying, but call, text, email.
Yeah, and when they respond in one of those 3 sources, you will know how they like to communicate. If this person texts me and I respond to text, I would hope that she knows that means I'm gonna respond to text, but I'm not gonna answer the phone. Right? So keep that in mind. And because we just don't know what people are doing and they're not able, or where they're at work. You know what I mean? Like I have a doctor who's a client and he's like, always only text. He happily told me this. He's like, I'm walking down the hallways of the hospital. I can't be chatting on the phone about real estate, but I can text. So there's that. Number 2 is prepare for the buyer consultation. So we talked about that a little bit, and we're going to dig a little deeper on what that looks like. I know you mentioned that. So getting them in for a buyer consultation, like Cindy said, if you can't get them into a house, getting them in for the consultation, and sometimes the consultation is at the house. So what does that look like for you?
So if it's at the house, it's kind of like a fly by the seat of my pants. I'm prepared and having my booklet with me. I run out of them and I forget to grab them. But coming up with, I'm spoiled on our team because I have a packet that they assemble for me of frequently asked questions. And that's typically what I go through. You can Google, make your own. What are some frequently asked questions that buyers want to know? And make up your own information guide, but being prepared with, they're there to hear from you and what you have to offer them. So come up with your own sheet of frequently asked questions. But more importantly, what I have found that people absolutely need to know, it's shocking that they don't, is what are my out-of-pocket expenses and when do they hit? What happens right away? What is my down payment look like? What happens at closing? So I actually talk about that and spend time with that. When you go under contract, you're going to have to know what you have earnest money. Do you know what that is? Now, here's what earnest money is. And then after you make your earnest money deposit, you're going to need to pay for inspections. If you have well and septic here, they're going to be pushing $1,000 for if you want all of them. Find out, let them do research on radon. Is it important to you or is it not? Do you want well and septic? Do you not? And then also their application fee to the lender. A lot of people forget that. That's an actual expense that they have to pay right when they go under contract. So giving them, I usually do like a T grid and I put immediately upon under contract and then at closing and the balance of your down payment, first your homeowner's insurance, any closing costs. And having that conversation, you get to know them financially without them realizing they're telling you stuff. Because you find out, okay, well, they don't have the money to pay their closing costs. So I'm gonna need to ask the seller. So we can have them pay closing costs and we will roll it into the purchase price because no seller out there is gonna go, you're so sweet, I'm gonna give you $5,000.
Right.
It's not gonna happen. So having that conversation, to me, that is one of the most vital pieces in a buyer conversation is money out of pocket and when.
And it's making a connection there too, because you're helping them. And like you said, most of them don't know. And here's the thing, guys, and I know this happens a lot because I'm working with a lot of you when you're writing your first offers and not just your first one, sometimes your 5th one. When you're filling out your contract, or like Ken, your 13th one, certain things, like base paint disclosure. And anyway, a lot of times I get this, he just misses a little checkbox with the yes or no doing an inspection. Only 13 times, and then he got it. Anyway, he's a Yankees fan, so we're gonna pick on him a little bit.
We're still playing.
I know you are. I won't hear the end of it. But this is what question comes up a lot. oh, I'm filling out the purchase agreement and I don't know what their down payment is.
Mhm.
And they didn't know that they needed earnest money. How much should that be? And should it be 500? Should it be 1,000? Should it be 2,000? What should it be? I kind of have a rule of thumb on that. I don't know if you do. To me, under 100,000, 500 is adequate. Over 100,000, but not quite like 300,000, 400,000, 1,000 is okay. When you're starting to get into the threes and up, I think it should be 2,000 plus, depending on the price point. Just because that's what's expected. If you're buying a $900,000 house and you're choking over giving $1,000 earnest money, you got a bigger problem, right? So don't just use the standard across the board. It should be 1,000. In any case, you need to know that when you're writing the offer. Imagine you're under the gun because there's 5 other offers, not 25. Maybe we're past the 25 offers, but we're probably not past the 5, right?
Not yet.
Yeah, exactly. And so then you have to sit there and it's usually 9 o'clock at night. You all know it is. I know because I'm looking at contracts at that time for you all. And then you don't know, you didn't tell them about earnest money. You don't know what their down payment is. And you certainly don't know if they need closing costs paid for them or not. Do you think you're going to get a hold of someone that's not Jessica with cross country? Probably no. And sometimes not even Jessica at that point. So how are we going to finish this offer to be able to submit it tonight? You could lose your buyer the house if you don't have that buyer consultation that has that conversation.
And it doesn't even need to be come into the office and sit down and be that
Right.
thorough. But educating people, you are the expert. Educating them on what happens when is your job. And I used to follow that rule of thumb as far as earnest money goes, but we've recently switched. It's standard 1%. And
Okay.
at first I was like, I can't tell someone that, because that's always my first reaction is I don't like change. That's not my thing. And how am I supposed to tell them? Well, they don't know. They have no idea that 1% isn't normal. I mean, out west, you're talking 10 grand earnest money deposit on these expensive houses. Like when I have people moving from west here, they're like, that's it.
Right.
No one knows what standard is because they don't do this except once every 30 years or if ever. So we've recently started 1% of the purchase price is the earnest money requirement. It's still a little tiny amount compared to other places.
And I see occasionally on contracts, no earnest money. And what that tells me when I see that is the buyer's agent didn't have a conversation with the buyer.
Or it's a VA loan. I have had, I have one that is a VA loan and he doesn't have a lot of money. So I have written offers with a VA loan with 0.
It's not required. So we're certainly not saying it's required. It just, again, we're at a time. If you want your offer to look as best as it can, so it can shine and be the one that gets accepted, those are the kind of things. And they shouldn't be worried about losing the earnest money unless they're planning on breaching the contract.
And if they're worried about losing their earnest money, you should be worried about losing the deal.
That's right.
So, but also just to partner with that in your own mind, you're not working to get a deal. You're working to help a buyer or a seller buy or sell a house. When you have that mental shift of, someone said that in one of our training sessions is, the deal needs to go through only if they need it to go through.
Yeah.
If that's not the house for them and you're not advocating for them to help get them out of something that's not supposed to be theirs, let it go. They'll respect you more and stick with you than you being forced to, like, I can't lose this deal. There'll be another one.
Yeah, I call that a savings account. We got to get paid now, and we got to get paid in the future. So if this isn't the right situation and they buy something 3 months from now, we'll get paid then.
Right.
So it's not about that. And if they stick with you, and Jose always says it, coming from a place of contribution, that's going to make someone trust you. So when you're trying to gain someone's trust, whether you're a buyer or seller, when they know that you're always coming from that place of contribution, meaning I'm here to assist you and to help you, you can't go wrong. They can't get mad at you. Well, they can, but.
And I remember my first year in the business, I remember that feeling of panic. If I felt something was falling apart, I felt like I was failing in my business. But if you have to have the mental shift of, I'm not failing in my business, I'm helping my buyer,
right,
or seller. It's not a failure if you're helping them. That just might not be the right fit after inspections or whatever. Yeah, it stinks. No one likes their deals to fall apart, but don't lose the buyer.
And again, so it's not just a one-time thing to have a buyer consultation. You're having consultations with them all along the process, explaining to them things that they need to know every step of the way. It's also a great opportunity to set expectations. In that buyer consultation, setting expectations of what they can expect from you and what to expect is going to happen. This is also a chance to talk to them about what to expect from a home inspection. So many less deals fall apart if they had a buyer's agent that explained to them what to expect and what the purpose of the home inspection is. And understand, and again, I can tell on the listing side, when someone didn't have a buyer consultation because they've written me this crazy release of contingency with either a ton of stuff or crazy stuff that people just don't typically ask for. So you've
Right.
got to have those upfront consultations.
Absolutely. When I talk to my people about the inspection, I always tell them, let the weekend projects go. Let's focus on
I like that.
safety,
Weekend projects.
Yes.
Yep.
focus on safety,
Yeah.
focus on things that could cause damage, and focus on things that are costly to repair. So plumbing leaks, absolutely. Electrical issues, absolutely. Roofing repairs, absolutely. Those are the things, and if the toilet is wiggly, tighten it when you get possession.
That's
all-
funny. I've got one right now. They want all the toilets in the house retightened. And I'm like,
I
seriously?
get it because it could cause a leak, and I have put it in there, yes, I have.
But try to tell a seller that.
Yeah.
Hey, they said your toilets are all wobbly and they're like, they're not. Well, the home inspector said they were.
Yeah.
It,
You can even sit down on it and wiggle, see what you
Right.
think. But that's the conversation I have with them, and I also tell them, it's vital you go. I'm in this situation right now with this buyer. He is a truck driver and he's here. They're moving from Colorado, she's not. And so she flew into town and I had a whirlwind weekend with her, showing her houses. Wonderful human being. She was not here for the home inspection. And she got the report.
Yeah.
So if you've had your first home inspection, or I don't know where you guys are in your business right now, but if you've not gotten to that point where you've had a home inspection, the reports are scary. If you don't know what you're looking at, and then you realize they need to be there. So I have that conversation. When can you be there? It's vital you go, because you need to understand the good about the house. In addition to this ridiculous report you're gonna get, it talks about your landscaping that's sloping towards your house 99% of the time.
Right.
It's gonna talk about your outlet that might not be secured properly. You need to hear that the roof is in great shape, that the flashing is good, there's no leaks in the attic. You need to hear that too. So having that conversation, if they're working, you might not be able to go the whole thing. Some inspectors take 2 hours. I've had one that was like 6. It was ridiculous. I will never use.
6 hour.
Ugh,
Never
no.
again.
Big
But-
house or-
No,
Oh.
Crazy inspector. This is why you need to have a good pool of inspectors that you work with and communicate with and trust that aren't gonna, that's an
And
overachiever.
Gibby's the one too, like they have to have 4 pictures of every room. On the,
Yeah.
ridiculous.
so having that conversation.
Because when they're there, they
You
can,
need to be
they
there.
can eyeball the things that the inspector is showing. So even if they can only come at the end. And then have 30 minutes to walk through with the inspector and have them show them
Yep.
what they have found. I've had an out of town buyer before buying a property sight unseen. Got his home inspection and some little spot on the basement wall that literally was just slightly bigger than a quarter. Looked gigantic on the photograph that the inspector took and put in the report, which was the questionable area, which I'm not sure why anybody's worried about a spot on a basement wall that's that big, but whatever. It looked in the picture enormous. And so I had to explain to him, I'm going to get you on FaceTime and I am going to show you live what we're looking at, but then I have to go back to the house and things like that. So that's a tough thing when they can't be there, because they do see that and things. Also, don't forget, the home inspector doesn't want to be sued later. So some of the stuff that they put on there is very overachieving because they want to make sure they cover all their bases.
Yeah, and some of them go way overboard. So find the ones that you like. And another piece of really good advice I can give as far as giving your buyers service above and beyond what other people do is a letter of next steps. Once they go under contract,
I like that.
write a letter of next steps, you know, your earnest money is gonna be due. And what I do is, as the form letter in my email, and what is changed in the letter of next steps is in red. So I know I have to change the earnest money amount. I know I have to change the title company, who the earnest money is made out to. And I know I have to change the date, the number of days for inspections, because typically, well, it's normally 7, but if like I was in a situation, I had to make it 10. So whatever is going to change, I have in red to remind myself I have to change those 3 things. Everything else is in just black type. Go through the process and say, okay, earnest money is due. Make application with your lender, order your home inspection. These are 3 people that I've used. Please Google them, find out who you like. Tell me when you're available. I will set it up for you. I want control of my deals. I don't want you calling the inspector because I want to be at the inspection. And if you set it on a Tuesday morning at 10, I can't go.
Right.
So I like control of that. Do everything for them. And that's kind of like, it makes you sound like, oh, you're my concierge, you're taking care of me. In all reality, I'm controlling my schedule. So having a letter of next steps, when you go through a deal, make notes and then write a paragraph. And then have a nice little photo of yourself at the bottom. So all of my buyers, once they go under contract, get a letter of next steps, and in the email, it's attached as a document. And then in the email, I say, okay, here's a letter of next steps. It's going to walk you all the way to closing, everything along the way. And then I bullet point in the beginning. Again, I need your earnest money. This is what it is. This is who it's made out to. This is where you drop it off. I need to have you apply for your loan, and I need you to order to tell me what inspector you want and when you can do it. That's in the email as well. So they see the 3 things right away. And also talk about the lull, talk about the time after inspections and appraisal, that 2-week time frame where there's nothing going on. Talk about that, because 99% of the time when I get a phone call, someone's panicking, what's going on? It's in the lull. So I prep them, and I even set reminders for myself now weekly when someone's under contract. And I'll tell them, hey, we're in the lull. Remember, we talked about that. Nothing's going on between you and me. The lender's doing their job. The title company's doing their job. You talking about that is going to save a panic feeling. And then following up, even if you have nothing to say, hey, we're in the lull. All
I
good.
like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because they do think you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they think we should be doing at that point, but it's again, another reason to be reaching out and communicating. People often forget that they're still prospecting business when they're working with someone. You still have to keep them happy and keep them wanting to work with you in case something would happen, and to get future business from them and referrals. Next on here is finding the home. So, you know, at that point, we've had our consultation, maybe we did it at the house, maybe we did it in the office. You know, I'll say before 3 years ago, we were more likely to be able to get people in the office. I find it interesting, whenever I get a referral buyer, they're more than happy to come do a buyer consultation. It's more of the internet leads, sign calls that don't know a connection to you other than I clicked on your website, that sometimes are less likely. That doesn't mean you didn't offer it or you don't do it then, of course, at the house. And we're going to talk a little bit here about putting together what those buyer marketing packets would look like. Offer and negotiating the contract, you know, I always like to say that the person who is representing the buyer is driving the bus in regards to writing the offer, because you wrote the offer, so you're driving the bus. And therefore, the seller's agent is at the mercy of your contract, and then we're going to just counter offer. So if you're going to drive the bus, do not have an incomplete contract. There shouldn't be blanks there, and you should know, I shouldn't have to, as a listing agent, call you and say, hey, Cindy, you didn't put anything where it says seller paid closing costs. Are you asking for closing costs, or are your buyer paying closing costs? On the flip side, when you work with sellers, not everybody's purchase agreement has a line for that. So you've got to dig deep and look really close. Do they need closing costs? It doesn't say so on their contract. Make sure it didn't get slipped in someplace. Then contract to close. So contract to close, like we were talking about with inspections, I love the letter of explanation about what next steps are going to look like. That's fabulous. It's another touch. they don't have to be out of your touch campaign. It's just a different touch campaign now, right? We wouldn't continue to send them this typical stuff like, hey, just checking in. Are you ready to look at houses? So make sure you also have a to-do list that says stop their touch campaign. Nothing worse than getting a call saying, did you mean to send me that email? Then they know that it was an auto email, first of all. So stop that. And I have some buyers that if they continue to get listings, they will continue to look and start to have second thoughts about the house that they have bought.
Let's go back to my people from Colorado.
Uh-oh.
After her home inspection, she freaked out. Her husband was there. The house is great. The seller was great. The seller was there. Listing agent is a wonderful agent. No issues. All minor stuff. She had a panic attack. And I happened to fly to Florida that day. Went out of town. And the radon came back. She wanted a radon because she's gonna put one of her kids in the basement. And it had 5.9, which I don't,
Nothing.
nothing. 4 is, it's, I've had ones that were 37.
30, yeah.
So she was like, I'm having, and then her husband texted me a house they wanted to see, and I'm like, and I had my someone show up for me, and I was like, I called him, and I said, listen, I don't want you to sell them this house.
Right.
Like, this is the situation. They're under contract. If they want it, I'll get them out. It's fine. We're still in the contract timeframe of inspections where I could use the inspection to get them out. Don't sell them on the house. Don't pick it apart. But I knew this person was going to be like exuberantly, overly, oh, this house.
Uh-oh, I know who it was. Go ahead.
I don't, maybe, because I don't know if you, anyway.
Okay.
I'll have to come
Okay.
back to that one.
Yeah.
But, so it was a he.
Oh, okay, then I'm wrong.
Okay.
But you know who I'm probably thinking of.
Probably,
Yeah.
yeah, he did what he was supposed to do, and he handled it great. Got a text the next day, we want to see this one. And I'm like, I called the guy, said, okay, I need to have a conversation with you. I said, you realize I can't control what houses have radon and what houses don't. You could have the same problem. You will have a post radon mitigation report showing that the numbers are fine. I promise I will not let you close on this house until you have that report in your hand and you're fine. But you've got to stop looking at these houses because the grass will always be greener, even after you close, always.
And we can't control what they get online and do, but goodness, don't be the one sending them the new listings.
Yes.
Pause their
I shut it
search.
down that day. I'm
Yeah,
like, "You're done."
absolutely. Have that on your checklist to do.
I need to know, like, it was the day that I had to respond to their removal of contingencies, or they weren't getting anything fixed.
Yeah.
So I told them, I said, you're either moving forward or you're backing out. But I need to know. And I said, I'm not being pushy. I will stick with you for as long as you need me to stick with you. I need to know which way we're going here. Are we done? Or are we sticking in? And he's like, we're sticking in. We're signing the removal of contingencies.
Okay.
Please shut the emails down.
Yeah.
So I did.
Yeah.
So yes.
And they don't get notification, by the way. They don't get an email that says you've been unsubscribed. They unsubscribe. We don't. We just pause or stop they just stop getting the auto emails. So definitely recommend doing that. Goodness. So lots of things going on during contract to close, as we've heard. Actually, more of what we do as agents happens between contract to close. There's so much to do to hold, and I do a class on bulletproofing your transaction, as well as one on contract to close, because there's so much. This is where you're going to show your expertise, really, is during that time, knowing how to handle and juggle those situations that happen. And then post-close systems. Post-close systems would be getting them now set up in a drip campaign that is a past client. So I need to say a month in, oh my gosh, how's it going at the new house? Can't wait to hear all about it. Sending them, things throughout the year like you do with your rest of your database. Now they're going to go in that post, closing. Now they're really a past client. And what am I trying to do with the past client? Get referrals or get their future business. Things happen. I'm sure it's happened to you. I've sold someone a house and 6 months later, they're calling me saying, oh my gosh, my husband got transferred. We have to sell the house we just bought 6 months ago. They aren't going to remember you if you don't put them in some kind of a campaign there.
Get their birthday. Send them a birthday card
yeah.
in the mail. Don't text them on their birthday. Buy a pack of birthday cards on Amazon. send them, oh my gosh, happy birthday, hope you have a great day. It takes 5 seconds. Slap the stamp on it, get it in the mail. Find out if they have an anniversary. Friend them on Facebook, any social media, find them and friend them. See when their anniversary is, happy, and that I text because that's fine. Or just post on their Facebook. Conversations with your past clients, whether it be on Facebook, social media of any kind, getting them to respond to you in any manner is great. And it doesn't mean that they're your client for life.
Right.
And things happen, you know, I talk a big talk up here, but perfection never is, it doesn't exist. I had a past client reach out to me a month or 2 ago, and he's like, hey, I'm dating someone now. It's getting serious. We're probably going to sell this house or keep it as a rental and get another one. So what do I do? What's your advice? He asked me all these questions and went through everything, got him back in touch with the lender he used before, got the pre-approval letter. I'm like, sweet. Set him up on our emails, got busy. I didn't follow up with him. And I was on vacation with my daughter and I got a text from the lender, which is probably not a good thing. But I had a good relationship with this lender. And so he says, I just want you to know that I just got a contract for your boy from someone else. And I'm like, what? And he was like, yeah. He says, I'm not sure what happened, but we called him and they yelled at him. They're like, Cynthia's the one that sent you to us. Like, what happened? So I reached out to him when I got back and played dumb and was like, hey, I haven't heard from you since you got pre-approved. Just wanted to check in what happened. And he's like, or, you know,
Yeah.
is
Where you
the
at?
criteria okay? I use that one a lot. Like if I don't hear from them, do we need to adjust anything on your criteria? How's it looking? Any houses, but, or I'll go through their portal and be like, this one seems nice. You know, what about that one? He saw a house that was listed by his past soccer coach.
Oh.
And he called him. So it happens, you know, and you have to be like, don't wallow in it, let it go. He could come around in the future because I did help his mom buy a house too. So it's not like the relationship is dead and it's not like it's never going to happen to you, because it will. People are people. He didn't know what to do. It's like, well, you knew what to do when you needed advice on what to do. You
Right.
knew
Right.
So
But I love that you say that because it doesn't matter how many years you've been in the business. What do you sell, around 40 houses a year?
my goal is 50. Yeah.
Yeah, so you sell a lot of houses a year, work with a lot of buyers that don't turn up to be, and that you're nurturing for a long period of time, and it still happens.
It still happens.
Yeah.
And I used to get really hurt and I would get my, you know, down in the dumps and another buyer will come. It's fine. I'm sad because I wanted to help him and meet the girlfriend that I was excited for him to have this relationship. And his daughter is stinking cute. I wanted to see her again. And I love his mom and his family. I'm a relationship person. So when someone does that, it hurts because what, you don't want to have a relationship with me.
Right.
Then
We're
you
breaking
realize
up.
that we're breaking up
Yeah.
and you're dead to me. No.
Right.
I'm
Right.
just kidding. I'll
Right.
still be here in the future if he comes back around.
Well, because sometimes they get feeling guilty and then they make it a campaign to get you a referral.
Yes, they do. Don't burn bridges over real estate.
No.
And there are friends that have told me I will never use you in real estate because I have had terrible situations occur. I'm like, I'd prefer to have a friendship. So, you know, it happens and it's
Sure.
okay. Do not let real estate ruin a relationship with someone. It's not worth it.
Questions about any of that before we move on? Anybody on Zoom or other market centers? Everyone's so quiet out there in the
Everyone's
computer
got a
world
question.
today. All right, 7 close to appointment tactics. In your book, that's on page 14.5. Let's talk a little bit about those. Showing the benefits. So definitely going through and taking some time to show your clients the benefits of what's going to happen, what's about to happen to them, with getting that contract together, right? So now we can, one, stop searching. That's definitely a big deal. So when you get a buyer and you find out their pain points, and one of the things on the flip side, sellers will tell you, I'm so sick of showing my house. I'm so sick of keeping it clean. I'm sick of, like, that's what you hear. Buyers also, they're sick and tired of being out there also looking at houses, right? Gosh, we're spending all of our weekends. I'm sick of being online. So finally we found something and we can move on. So there's a benefit there depending, on their situation. A take back close. I just use this one. So I have Ken and we have this lovely friend of mine, and she'll remain nameless. I sold her house 2 years ago, and we've been looking for houses for 2 years. She's very picky. She's a real pain in the butt, probably one of those situations. Actually, I may not talk to her again after this transaction closes because she's driving me so nuts. I may not. And I don't know if I'm driving her nuts. I couldn't imagine. She's driving me nuts. Ken can attest to this. And unfortunately for Ken, whenever I can't show her houses, I've kept with one person. So like, if you're not available and you pull someone in when you're on vacation or you're doing something else, try to stick with that same person. They don't want to be ping ponged around to other people. So he's had the fortune of being with Sue and her parents.
Oh, you just said her name.
Oh, shoot. It doesn't matter. You guys don't know who that is. This is being recorded anyway. I know, right? Many times. And ultimately she decided after 2 years to not only go from looking for a house that was $250,000, but to go into a condo that's $110,000. Which, by the way, was also a 2% commission, but fine, you found a property. I was taking my kid to college and I could not write the offer. So Ken showed it to her. He negotiated the contract, got it together. Now it was no inspections. There were multiple offers. She won. We finally won because we've made many offers. Yeah, well, maybe not. And then long story short, nothing really to do because there weren't inspections. So there's that lull again. And she tries to come up with the strangest things to be difficult about. I needed her to initial the home warranty waiver. I don't know if I want to do that, she says. Well, you're not asking for a home warranty. Do you want to buy one? I need to take a week to decide. So just difficult, and unfortunately come to find out that the lender couldn't do the loan because there was something not insured on the HOA. And so now we had to either switch lenders to go to a portfolio loan, which is a whole nother class, another story, or void the contract. The last thing I want to do is make poor Ken show her more houses because I'm out. I'm not.
I'm sick.
Yeah. And so I was afraid that she was going to use this as an excuse to back out. Possession was not an issue. We were already giving the seller like 60 days with rent because they're building. And so that luckily when the deal didn't happen, which by the way happened right at closing, like we had closing scheduled, we had the conversation, who's going to be at the closing? And I said, no one, because I'm not even going to her closing. Anyway, that's terrible, but I'm not. Anyway, so we couldn't follow through. Yeah, I can't go, none of the days. So what I did was the take back close. I just assumed she was going to void the contract and want to start this journey all over again. So I said to her, you know what? This probably isn't the condo for you. I feel like, you know what? Why would you even want to move forward? Let's just start over again. Let's just do it. We'll find you something better. I think we probably shouldn't pursue. And then she did exactly what I figured she would do. Wait a minute. No, I want this place. I really like it. And I'm like, you do? Because like, I've never heard you say that you really like it.
Right.
I'm shocked right now that you really like it because you've not acted that way this whole time. So as soon as you take it away, suddenly and again, be aware of your spectator. Make sure that you know that that's the kind of person. Everything that I say, she does the opposite anyway. And it worked. That's my point. So the take back sometimes is, it also makes them feel like you're not trying to push something on them.
Right.
You know what? It sounds like you don't want to move forward. It sounds like this isn't the right situation for you. Maybe we should just, do a mutual release and move on. And then it's, no, I don't want to do that. And it worked, thankfully.
And sometimes they do. I've never had to do a take back close before. I actually didn't even know what that meant.
Oh.
But I've never had to do that before, but like I had said to those people from Colorado, when I was like, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'm here for you. I'll stick in with you for 6 months. They don't have 6 months.
Yeah,
They have to get here. She's has all these kids out in Colorado and a baby, and she's exhausted. And she just wants to be with her husband who's here.
so what you did there was you inadvertently mentioned their pain point.
I did.
Uh-huh.
You see that? So like, you don't have to say, don't you have a situation? No, you're saying we can take all the time we
Yeah.
need.
I'm here for you for as long as you need me to be. And he was like, no, we're sticking with the house. We'll sign
Exactly.
the.
But it is that would be the
It's the
same as
same
that take
thing.
back. Yeah. There's some additional ones here that I'm gonna let you guys go over just for the sake of time, but I did want to jump down to number 7, which is the tie down. So tie down, you guys hear me talk about it. Those of you in my coaching, the tie down example or phrases are in the drive. So there's a whole list of them, but tie downs are a great way to control the conversation. So things like, wouldn't that be great? Or can't you, or isn't it, or wouldn't you? I do the one that I use a lot is, hey, Cindy, just out of curiosity,
Mhm.
and then my question. It lightens the mood and it's not a yes or a no. So really tie downs are not a yes or no question or statement that leads down a positive path.
And I always like, even though it is a yes or no, I always like to confirm after I say stuff, especially when you're talking about the financials and the timing of things. Does that make sense?
Right,
Mhm.
yes, and that's a tie down too.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
You guys know it. I do it all the time in the chat. And I've actually had someone call me, someone who's formerly in coaching, and they said, hey, just so you know, I'm not a kindergartner. When you say, does that make sense? It makes me feel like a kindergartner. And I'm like, well, that's a you problem. Like,
it
that's,
is.
that's not normal.
Right.
When I say, does that make sense? And I do say it a lot. I know that I do. But I want to make sure that my answer was clear
Right, yeah.
and not have you just say, because sometimes in clients too, will be like, oh, okay. And then they don't want to feel stupid, so they don't ask another question.
You see their
Right?
face. You
Yeah.
can see, I was in a closing with a really good friend of mine who is a business owner. She owns her own company and has, she's lived in her house for a very long time, just bought and sold, and the closing officer explained something and she was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, do you know what that means? And so I interrupted the closing to clarify what she wasn't grasping. Watch the body language and watch the facial expressions. And I do say that a lot. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? Was that clear to you? Do you need me to repeat it in a different way? And saying it like that, because sometimes you have your pat answer, but they won't understand your pat answer. So let's rephrase it so that you can.
Because we're all inclined to say, I do it. And I say, oh yeah. And then I'm like, wait, no, I don't understand that.
Yeah,
I catch myself. We automatically just want to be passive that way and
you want to
do
look
that.
smart. You don't want to look dumb. You don't want
Right.
to, nobody wants to look dumb.
Mhm.
I switched to T-Mobile yesterday and he explained something to me and I tried to repeat it to my family last night and I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know what he said. He said this and I thought it meant this, but I don't think it meant that. So I'm gonna have to ask tomorrow.
Right,
Yeah, so
right.
watching their facial expressions to make sure that they actually understand and what the tie down is clarifying.
Questions about any of that? I like that in your book here, there's a buyer consultation preparation checklist.
Gina,
A little bit about that too.
we do have a
and
question.
compare- Go ahead.
Sorry.
No.
We at KW Living don't know what tie down list that you're speaking of. Is that something that you can share?
Yep, I have it in my Google Drive and I can just download it and email it to you, Karen.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and there's a ton of them, like even if you, and I can get it to you, but you can Google tie downs and there's a ton of phrases, but I have a particular document that I can send your way.
Thank
But
you
it's a
so
good
much.
idea to to practice those. It's a great thing to script, just getting used to reading or even just saying them out loud so that you get used to what those look like and how to use them, like does that make sense? So I've gotten in the habit of saying that constantly, and I think it was because of a tie down sheet that I had read. Okay, so in your guide, it says buyer consultation preparation checklist. It gives you some tips on that. I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys just take a look at that for a minute. We aren't gonna go through them all, because again, I don't want to run out of time today, but I would suggest you take a look at that. We talked mostly about those anyway. There's some different things in here. Having a checklist for prior to closing and then before you even get to the point of the sale. So it sounds like you have that. So I love that you send out that letter. So that's the kind of stuff that you're going to do during the process, right? And just having that checklist, because you need to be consistently doing this stuff for everyone. All right. I think we're gonna break for an exercise here, and in your book, it's page 14.9. And what I want to do is, it says buyer guide home wish list, and there is some questions there. I will tell you this too, on that particular document, that's another thing that you can put in your buyer packet. And so we're going to talk some more about buyer packets here. One of the things that's a great thing to put in there is their wish list. So I have a form that I just created myself in Designs that is got 2 columns on it, and it says wants and wish list. I'm sorry, wants and wish list, and then needs. So what is my wish list? What are my wants? So that's one column. And then what are my needs? So these are the have tos. What are my deal breakers? You know, I tend to think when someone says to me, I have to have a fenced in backyard because I have 3 dogs, that is a fence really a deal breaker? Like, would you really not buy the perfect house that hit all your checklists because it doesn't have a fence, when, by the way, we know you can add a fence, right? So is that a wish list or is that a need? I mean, it can get tricky, but I love for them to have that, and it's a visual really for them. And then I want to take a look at it and discuss it with them. There's another added layer of the buyer consultation, but I would say this, I'm giving that to them in their buyer packet, and we're going to talk about it later. So it gives you a great segue into follow-up. So supposing I just met this person because they called on the for sale sign and they got connected to me somehow, and it wasn't my listing, let's just say. And I'm showing them one house and I'm forcing them into a buyer consultation with my packet. This gives me a great follow-up. Hey, by the way, I've got this home buyer wish list here that says your wants and needs, and it's going to help me develop your search. And I'm going to follow back up with you later tonight or tomorrow, depending on the time of the day, to find out what that looks like. Because that's a little different than just, hey, tell me about, like we do the, and I always, LP Mama is like the #1 script that everyone who's working with the buyer should know and master. It's more than that though. It's more than just the location, the price, bedrooms and baths. It's deep things. Like, of course, a lot of people would say, I desire a pool, but is that really a need? Like, and we don't live in Florida, by the way. So like the chances of a pool is pretty slim. But I don't want to be on a busy street. That's a big deal. I don't care if the house is perfect. I'm not going to be on a busy street. Or our last house had this big steep hill and we had such a hard time mowing. I'm never going to buy a house on a steep hill again. I mean, those are the kinds of conversations that you can get, which takes it past the, are you looking in North Canton and Jackson? And if they're talking to 4 different people, because they probably are just even accidentally, I went to open house and I met Carl Ann, but Kim showed me a house and Chanel was referred to me by a friend of mine or neighbor, there you go. And then I went to open house again and I met great Cindy, and now she's giving me all this other information, so that's happening to your buyers. I promise it is. Even if they're saying I'm committing to the first person I talk to, then it's easy for them to say, gosh, the person I was talking to didn't give me all this information or didn't ask me all these questions. And by the way, they're sending me the wrong stuff.
Which I will say that it's one of the conversation pieces I have when people say to me, I want an open floor plan. I want gray and neutral.
Yeah.
When they say these things, I always let them know, when they say, especially, I wanted an updated move-in ready home. I always say,
Yeah.
you have to realize that in this industry, there are agents who are 20 and there are agents who are 70. My idea of updated and ready to move in is vastly different than this person's updated and ready to move in. Yes, you will receive listings, as I don't have a button that says updated and ready or open concept. So disregard those, move on. Make sure they know, like, I'm not an idiot. I'm not listening to you. I just can't check that box.
Right.
So filter through, because a wall might be able to come down. Let's just go look.
Take walls too.
Yeah,
Well, and listen, an open could just mean in a split level, the living room is open to the dining room, but not to the kitchen.
Right,
right.
yeah.
That could mean something someone could tell me, I have an open concept house. You do? Because there's a wall in your kitchen. Most people, when they mean open, they mean the kitchen looks into the great room.
Right.
Isn't open enough if just the island from the breakfast bar side opens up into the great room, but there's still a wall for the kitchen, things like that. It is a different perspective. Also, I have to have a finished basement is a very different thing than what kind of finished basement. Do you mean Berber carpet and paneling? Because we got that.
Yeah.
Or did you mean kitchen and full bathroom and bedrooms? Very different thing.
And also partially finished has two different meanings. Partially finished can mean I
Yes.
started the project, but I'm not done.
Correct.
It's partially finished.
Yeah.
Other partially finished is this room of the basement is finished, this is not. So letting people know, like, this is
And that's in remarks too.
Yeah.
Some people put that in remarks or they check a box that says that.
partially finished, so you don't know until you get there. And that's why you always tell people, if it checks 80% of your boxes, go see. Let's just get out there. You gotta get out there and go look, because pictures are deceiving, descriptions are deceiving. You have to go in. And then I've had people tell me, kind of like when you're shopping for a wedding dress, and you're like, oh, this is what I want. Back in the 90s, I want the big puffy sleeves and I want all the things. And then you go try them on and you're like, I do not want the puffy sleeves. Same thing with houses. They could say, I want the open concept. And then I have one. I hate it. I would so much rather my kitchen be walled off. It's so noisy in the kitchen
Well,
for the people. watching
and
TV.
what the trade-off is this, depending on how open, then they get there and say, there's no cabinets.
Yeah.
Well, where did you think the cabinets were gonna go
Right,
when the
right.
kitchen was open to the great room?
There's no wall.
They're not gonna
Yeah.
suspend from the ceiling, or maybe they do with a soffit and that closes it off, but usually you don't just have dangling cabinets, you've got something under it, right? Another counter. So, they need to understand what they're even asking for with that too. Any case, so questions about wish list. I don't think we're gonna break for an activity there. That's not the page that I thought it was. So, just putting together something to be able to give to your buyer leads me into the buyer presentation packet. So I do a couple of classes throughout the year on creating buyer and seller marketing packets, but not to have to wait for that. In Command, there's a simple place to do it, which is in designs and templates. So for some of you maybe already know this and some of you don't. We also through Stonegate Title have Breakthrough Broker that has materials. People I know have made packets on Canva. Cross Country has their Total Expert where you can make different flyers and things, but even in Command, and that's where I made mine. So I used to have the luxury of having glossy pages from being on a team. It's expensive. It's expensive to do it. So if you don't have a team behind you that's making marketing materials for you, that's okay. You can do it. In designs, there's templates. So what I would recommend is for buyers, choosing one of the templates. I think there's 5 or 6 templates. Stick with one because you want everything to look the same. Your branding should all be the same, by the way. So whatever's in your marketing packet should be similar to what's on your business card, should be similar to what's on your website. Anything that you do, all those things should be branded the same. So pick a template and stick to it. Don't do pieces, parts of templates. Stick to it. Do not use all 45 of the pages. There's a lot of pages in there. The reason that those templates have, and I know Lynn does a great class just on command with designs, but you know, there's 40 pages in some of them because they're giving you the option to pick and choose pages. Everything is 100% customizable. So you can click on most of those squares and delete and put your own information. You can get rid of the generic logo and put your KW logo, things like that. I don't prefer on the listing one to redo a new one for customizing it to each individual person. So a lot of the pages are custom to a particular person. On the buyer side, the same. So I'm not going to make a buyer packet 10 minutes before I go show every house. I'm not. So I'm not customizing it. I think if you have the time and you want to do that, that's great. But that's really where someone has an assistant and they can say to their assistant, hey, I'm going to be showing the house to these people today at 2. Can you get me a packet together ready to grab and go? If you don't have that luxury or you're not your own assistant and have time to do that, they don't need the welcome letter to have their name on it. I would rather you not go empty-handed and not have packets ready to grab and go than to put the pressure on to having to customize it. Does that make sense? At every given time, I have 5 buyer packets ready to go and 5 listing packets, marketing materials ready to go.
It's a really good idea since I.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I also have recruiting packets ready to grab and go. So I have a nice big stack of red folders. I've ordered some directly from Keller Williams and they say Keller Williams. And when I'm out of those, I just use red glossy folders that you can get from Walmart or Office Max, really. I'm interested in the ones that have 2 pockets. I'm not interested in taking the time to bind things. I want to be able to loosely pull things out that I want to show people. So I'm not trying to make it look like, and don't make it more difficult for yourself. Most people are 90% are throwing this away, guys. So don't make it bigger than it needs to be. Make sure there's a place for your business card, and decide what needs to be in there. And I think a step-by-step process, and then maybe something on their wish list. I love the idea of most recently or most asked questions from buyers. What are those things? And we can answer those questions right here. You also are going to include your exclusive buyer's agency and your consumer guide. I have 2 copies of those in there because I'm going to give them a copy and take a copy, right? But maybe I've already sent them that in Dotloop. Remember yesterday where I said I create a loop just called consumer guides. And then as I talk to people, I send them that consumer guide. It's a great way of getting their email address. And then you know you've covered your bases, you've done what you needed to do, and the history can prove it, even if they never sign it. If they aren't interested in signing an exclusive agency, I'm going to explain to them that next time we get back together, we're going to talk about it again. That's okay. You just met me. I'm not giving you an engagement ring right now that you have to say yes. It's not some silly TV show or marry me, just met you 5 minutes ago kind of thing. I get it. So it's how do you know? And you should know that too. So what? So they came to your website and they asked to see a house and you showed it to them. Why do you think that you have the right to say, I won't work with you if you don't sign my exclusive agency and you've only known me for 10 minutes? You haven't earned it yet. So I hear agents that say that all the time, I won't work with people unless they sign it. Well, at what point? That would be my question. At what point? Sure, maybe after 5 times and I've gotten up on a Friday night and popped out and canceled dinner, which I would never do, but let's just say I did. And I was showing them the house and I feel like they're not being loyal to me. That might be a time that I'm gonna force it, but nothing frightens me more than hearing people's examples of trying to force this document down someone's throat. They aren't gonna work with you then. So I'm not a stickler with you have to sign it, especially not in the first 5 minutes. I haven't earned it yet. Give me a chance to earn it and explain to you why we're gonna come to this agreement. By the way, it's mutual. Maybe I don't like you. Maybe I don't want to work with you. I'm not going to work with the buyer who says, I can only go on Sunday. I can only go at 8 o'clock at night. I want to go look at properties that are out in the middle of the woods someplace. Yeah, that's not happening. Not for me, for somebody else. I'll refer it to Ken. Can it-
Good ones.
Yeah.
But I do like, right? I do like to point out that it's a mutual understanding. So that puts the ball back in your court a little bit. This isn't, it's a mercy of the buyer and you're desperate to get them to sign it. It's let's look at what this means and what this relationship means to both of us. And really, it's more of a loyalty agreement. If I'm agreeing to do the following for you, which gives you a chance to explain your value, all I ask in return is that you're loyal to me. And by signing this, it just avoids issues with, excuse me, you going to an open house and didn't mention you were working with an agent, and then we have a problem because that agent thinks that they're going to represent you. And by the way, the disadvantage to you, Carl Ann, is you don't even know that girl you met at open house. And now they're saying that they're procuring cause and they're going to write the offer. Instead, you don't have your representation. So it's also going to protect you. So guys, learn how to script the exclusive buyer's agency agreements. So to me, there's a goal of getting listing appointments and getting listings signed. And there's also a goal, I know, on some teams, and Cindy can talk more about this, of getting buyer's agency agreements signed. So, I'm going to lead generate. I'm going to build my database. I'm going to learn to follow up. I'm going to learn how to get people into the house. But I should also have a goal of how many buyer's agency agreements I get signed. And that doesn't mean you cram it down someone's throat in the first 2 minutes that you've met them. There's a tactic to it, and it's something that you guys should be scripting. I know in the drive, we've got a script on it as well. Talk a little bit about that. I know you guys have goals. Uh-oh, you're smiling at me.
This is the one area of my business that I fail. I don't want to say that I don't believe in them, because I do. And I am asked to have them signed. I am delusional in thinking that people will stick with me.
Yeah,
And most of the time they do.
yeah,
Once they get to know me and I answer all the questions that other agents haven't, and even adding just a tiny bit extra makes you a step above, because there are some terrible agents out there. Yes, they're important. So scripting around that, and it is making them realize that this is a loyalty agreement. I'm a 1099. I get paid at closing by the seller, not you.
right.
As
Yes.
a buyer's agent, you're not paying me. So I'm spending all this time doing all this stuff for free on a Friday night, which I have done, on a Saturday morning, which I have done. I've left church early on a Sunday to go and help you. This is just you committing to me, and it's also saving your time, because you don't have to field the phone calls and call the number on the sign where that person is actually representing the seller. You have someone advocating for you. You have someone looking out for your best interest. That's what I do. Ours is also an easy exit.
Mhm.
It's an easy exit buyer agreement. If you don't like me and you feel I am not representing you to my full ability, you feel like I have lost you as a buyer, you can call me or email me and say, Cindy, this is not working out. Most of the time when that happens, and I can honestly say in my career, other than the guy that was the past client who
Sure.
delusional, even though he's been through it before, they don't know how this business works. So educating them on that, call me. And that's one of the frequently asked questions in our sheet is, what do I do when I see a house, a sign in the yard, and I have a question about the house? You call me. I can pull up any listing out there for sale. But since it's easy exit, if I'm not representing you to the level you feel I should, call me, email me. And most of the time it is mutual. So I
Yeah.
had this one buyer who was the wackiest person I think I had ever met. I mean, the stuff that she was concerned with, super nice. I mean, I liked her a lot. She had this beautiful daughter. They were great people. The stuff that she was concerned with and said, I was like, okay. And so I had to like shove down my facial expressions because I wear my feelings on my face. I had to hide it. I'm not good at that. And she annoyed me every time my phone rang or buzzed. I was like, oh, I can't with this one. And it just, she irritated me. Plus she was looking far away. So I had a lot of driving to do for her. She emailed me and said, Cindy, I haven't signed anything with you. Is this email good enough to say that we're done? She said it in a nice way.
Sure.
And I'm like, absolutely. Peace out.
Yes, exactly.
So making it an easy exit shows them that they're not stuck. But it also, you are more than likely going to be having mutual feelings if this is not working.
Right.
And I understand in the beginning of your business when you don't have the sales and you have to work with people who you don't want to. I get that. I did that too. Push down the feelings, get the job done, give them the same representation that you would your best friend. Same thing. But when you have the luxury of saying, Ken, you can have this one.
Poor kid. He's like, hand them my way.
It's a good thing. And it is basically, it's an understanding that they don't know how the business works. They don't know that I don't get paid till closing. They think that I might get a salary from Keller Williams.
Yeah, they try to stay in the dark about it because they don't want to know. I feel like sometimes. I also think that makes it less threatening to sign it when there's that, but also we would really have to pursue suit to be able to get paid if they bought with someone else. I also give you a little tip on the buyer's agency. Write the words residential property where it says located at. Do not write the address of the property. I have a whole loop that I've created myself that I have all of my own buyer documents in and listing documents in. So I can pull from my template, not from the company's templates. And I have some of those things already filled out. So one of the things I have already filled out is the exclusive buyer's agency. And I've written on that line, residential property. Don't write residential property in Stark County. What if they want to buy in Summit County? Don't limit yourself. It's just 2 words. It's just residential property. This way I don't need to get a new one signed every time they want to make an offer on something, because if you haven't gotten it signed yet, you will get it signed when you create a loop and they're making an offer on a house. So now's your chance to lock that down. And write residential property and make it for 6 months, make it for a year if you feel like this is a loosey-goosey person who's going to possibly make low offers and it's going to take a long time. Then you've already got it done and, you know, yay. Then when you don't get that deal together and you write another offer in 2 days, you don't have to do a whole new one again with an address again, right? Awesome. There's a whole page in here on your book on page 1411, that's a buyer's need analysis. So I love these questions on here. This is a big deal for you to learn. In addition to that script and having your clients give you their wish list and their wants and needs and, you know, having that buyer consultation, explaining the process. Let me also mention, I know Stonegate here, and I'm not sure the other title companies that we're affiliated with at Elevate and Living, but I'm assuming they have something similar. Stonegate has this roadmap for us. It's actually on a nice card stock that you can put in your buyer and seller packets. And it's in the drive for those of you in coaching. And it's literally like a roadmap and it shows them step by step what to expect is going to happen when. Good idea. It's also, I like to look at the buyer packets and for that matter, the seller packets. And when I say packet, I mean marketing materials on what I'm going to do for you and what we're going to do to get you, you know, a house. Another packet might be contracts, right? In there, it's a prop. For me, the marketing materials are a prop to tell me what to talk about and to leave them with, right? What if I'm showing up into the house and in most cases, there's 2 people buying a house. And only one of them came. So now there's information I'm sending home. There's that. Another part of qualifying, by the way, if I didn't mention this yesterday, is finding out who the decision maker is. Supposing you're bouncing around town with the not decision maker. You'll hear this. My husband is at work, but I want to look at houses during the day. I know you've had this. And when we find the one that I like, then I'll do a second showing and only bring him through when I narrow the list down. So that maybe hasn't been a thing in the time you guys have been licensed, but it's gonna become a thing again. Having second showings used to be a humongous part of narrowing down the houses because there was more to pick from. And we will evolve back to that. So in today's market and the past several years, it's been, this house just hit the market yesterday. We get there and there's already 25 other people in the house, like it's an open house, everyone's showing it. We've got lots of offers. There's no time for a second showing. So you might not even know what I mean when I say second showing. Second showing means we've looked at 10 houses and now I've narrowed that list down to 2. And I want to go back over the weekend because we've got time because I know it's not going to sell. I want to go look at those 2 because those are my top choices and then make a decision. Or I want to bring my kids through, or I want to bring my parents through. Or like I said, maybe the decision maker wasn't there and now you have to bring them through. It's a hard thing. How do you determine the decision maker? Like you can't just say, hey, are you the decision maker?
Yeah, I feel their personalities pop out pretty plainly.
Yeah.
So the decision maker is more of the G personality when you're walking through. I have one couple that's exactly this.
Oh,
She wasn't working at the time. She is now, so now things have changed, but definitely she was the one that was like, yeah, no, I'm not, no, yeah, I want this one, no, and he's like, okay. You can tell
yes.
very plainly when you have both.
Well,
of
who's
them.
saying no, that's not gonna cut it? You know, like that's what happens, right?
Right.
It can be, you can be fooled though. I've had situations where the husband was the D, the wife was the S. He was ruling things out, but in the end, when we got in the car, like I totally misjudged it. Got in the car, drove to the next house. And same thing, he was he's the one asking all the questions, he's the one drilling me. I'm not having warm and fuzzies from him at all. And she's all, just because of her personality, she's like an IS. And in the drive to the next house, I'm not sure what happens, but clearly he's in charge, but he wants her to be happy. So she's really the decision maker. He may be the one who says, I'm making the final call, but I want you to be happy. And I can see that house made you warm and fuzzy, even though I'm skeptical. She's actually the decision maker behind the scenes. So there's that for sure. And it like sometimes really surprises me because I'll be like, whoa, what just happened?
And one thing, another question in our buyer consultation frequently asked questions is what feedback should I give while we're touring homes? And that's the opportunity
Oh, I like that.
to tell them, the more you talk, the more I'm able to pick up on what you like, what you don't like, because I'm out showing houses to other people too.
Right.
So there might be one that's not on your radar that I can call you and say, hey, it's actually happened to me where I was in a house that I knew was somebody else's and I had to get this guy out because it wasn't for him, get my other buyers in. And, having that conversation of what feedback to give, that will kind of pull out the decision maker. And because the one that is dominating the conversation, but you can tell the guy that's like, ultimately, because my husband's like that, he definitely has to make the final decision, which is fine because he typically makes a good one. But he does value my opinion. And if I'm like hard no,
Right.
because when we were looking at houses, he is the decision maker. He's been like that since the day I met him. It's fine. I'm pretty easygoing. But this one house he wanted, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like you're drawn in by the yard, and when are you gonna mow that? I'm not mowing that. And this house sucks. Like this is not a good house for our family. So it was, he respected that. But as you ask these questions for them, when you walk in a house, tell me what you like, tell me what you didn't like. Communicate with me as you walk through, because I am out looking at houses with other people. It helps me to get to know what you want. and then you'll be able to pull out that decision.
And a lot of how do you feel about this? Not just what do you think? Because again, there's the warm and fuzzies, right? How do you feel about this kitchen? I know we talked about you didn't want wood and you wanted the white or the gray or whatever. You didn't want exposed wood, but boy, this is a really pretty wood, whatever it is. How do you feel about this? Because I know that everything else really checks the boxes. And sometimes you'll find people do the strangest things. They buy something that they didn't even tell you, like hence my Sue example, bought a condo, was looking at houses. Maybe they'll be able to look around that, I guess is what I'm saying. So, you know, how do you feel about this kitchen? I know it's not what we talked about, but how do you feel about it? Because then you'll find, oh, you know, I'm really not that rigid about the white kitchen thing. Oh, gosh, because it sounded like you were, but now I'm finding out that that's not that big of a deal. It gives you your chance. We're not just tour guides walking through the house. This is your chance to ask questions. How do you feel about the backyard? How do you feel about the finished basement or the not finished basement? How are we feeling about that? Strangely enough, people, their personality of, oh, you know what? I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but my dad does remodeling. So I love this location. I love this layout. I know it has horrible carpet and I know it's got oak trim, but you know what? We don't mind. We could rip all that out and like, you'll start to find that out as you're asking the right questions. So continue to qualify that buyer, even as you're walking through the houses. Don't assume that you know, because you showed them 5 things. I can give you 25 examples, which I won't, of people that bought the opposite of what they told me. It happens all the time.
Yeah, they don't know what they want until they get out there.
Right.
It's, you know, and another question in that pamphlet is, should I consider a foreclosed home? Well, I don't know, that depends. Are you handy? Do you have someone in your family that's handy? Because most of the time foreclosed homes are distressed. If you have an FHA loan, probably not. It's not gonna fly, it's not gonna pass. And that question gives you the ability to find out, do you have someone handy in your life? What are your skills? Are you like a minor, I could screw a loose cabinet door back on,
Right.
or I could take out the whole kitchen and redo it myself.
Yes.
Where do you fall in that with your family, with your friends? So asking that question about foreclosed properties, there's always digging deeper. You go deeper all the time.
I'll add to on that questionnaire or somewhere in your buyer packet, there should be 2 other things. Can you sell me a for sale by owner?
Yes.
If you have not had this conversation with your buyers, you may get a phone call that says, oh my gosh, you're gonna be so excited for me. I just bought a house. I don't know why they say it like that.
I don't either.
Because what makes them think I'm gonna be excited for them? But they do. They're like, yay for me. And you're like, what? And then I realized I didn't have this conversation. That's where the buyer consultation comes in. And that question, can you sell me a for sale by owner? And the answer is absolutely yes. So the steps are this, Mr. Buyer. Please let me know when you've driven past a for sale by owner. Do not call the sign. Call me with the information from the sign. Take a picture, send it to me. I will call the seller and let me give you the benefits of why me selling you the for sale by owner is going to help you. You then will lose representation if you go do it yourself. There's a number, blah, blah, blah percent of for sale by owners fall through. Listen, as a buyer, didn't we walk through that house 2 weeks ago where the seller refused to leave and you were so uncomfortable with them sitting there in their sunroom? How do you imagine the seller is going to show you the house in a for sale by owner? And then who's writing the contract? Like, I would love to be the person there observing. Like, I want to just witness it one time. Who's writing the contract?
Right.
And how are they negotiating these terms when they're sitting across the table from each other? I'm not being snarky. Like, I really want to see that happening. And then, by the way, the seller's not going to do a better price for you because you don't have an agent. They're for sale by owner because they're a whole different breed of people who want to not pay anybody. So that's not true. So I'm going to call we have a whole script on it. I'm gonna call the for sale by owner and I'm gonna be able to represent you in most cases. There's very few for sale by owners that absolutely are adamant that they won't work with an agent. I'm not trying to push a listing on them. I'm only saying, will you pay an agent with a buyer? And most of the time, the answer is yes. So make sure you explain that to them clearly and also have the open house conversation. Hey, go to open houses. Here's a stack of my business cards. If you've got someone who likes going to open houses, give them a stack of your business cards. They don't have to necessarily sign in if you say, here's my agent's information and my name is this, or they sign in and they put your name next to it, whichever. But give you my business card. That stops the agent dead in their tracks there.
And then also, if you present it as far as I'm saving you from getting into someone else's database because you're already annoyed by all your emails you're getting. Put my name down, right? It's going to show them that hands off, then you're not going in someone else's database, getting phone calls, getting text messages.
Right.
You're doing them a favor is how you present it. By writing my name down, you will not get bothered. You can walk around freely once you say you're represented. So.
And that protects them too from working with a stranger they've never met who also represents the seller.
Right.
All right, so on page 1413 is a little exercise. So I'm gonna have us break for maybe 7 minutes and have you guys as a group answer those questions in each of the market centers. So we're not gonna group in little teams. I'm gonna say each market center can go through those questions together, and then we'll come back in about 7 minutes and have one person from each market center give an example or answer one of those questions. All right, so let's say we'll be back at 52. All right, I'm gonna mute myself here.
Okay, everybody still with me? Okay, so, why don't we just cruise through this really quickly, want to be efficient about time, of course. Let's try that again. So sorry about that. I thought I was unmuted, but well, thank you very much. All right, so let's see. All right, let's try this again.
Wait, I'm trying to mute you so that we can have our own discussion at
Okay.
each market center. So that's why I muted you.
Oh, okay.
Were you trying to talk to your group on Zoom?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just turn my volume down. That's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's try this again.
It's not gonna
is
work
anybody-
like that for me because we can't talk to everybody on Zoom.
I know when I was on Zoom, I couldn't participate.
Okay, all right.
Maybe just mute it and us three will discuss.
All right, so I apologize for anybody who's unable to mute, unmute, like Kathleen, Jennifer, Danielle. I don't know what the issue is, but I do apologize. Let me look at the chat box, see if there's something in there.
KW Living is muted.
Yeah, right. So, okay, I can't hear you on Zoom, no worries, okay. Asking to unmute. Right. And I can't unmute anybody.
Well, that's what Mike said, when you're on Zoom, you can't participate.
Yeah, well, then,
I guess it really hasn't shifted my thinking. I'm still stuck on how to get those exclusive buyer agency forms.
Buyer agreement signed. I want to say, I think there was some confusion and you guys probably, forgive me. Your name is?
Tyler.
Tyler, hi, I'm Janet. Very nice to meet you. I know Rhonda, I know Jason, both are seasoned agents. How long have you been in business?
About 2 years now.
Okay, fabulous. All right, so get the buyer rep agreement signed. Yeah, that's always tricky. I think Gina commingled in her conversation, the buyer rep agreement versus the consumer guide. I could swear I heard her say, well, you need to wait a few times before you give them the consumer guide.
Oh, not the consumer guy.
Not the consumer guide, yeah, but did I hear that wrong? Did I hear that incorrectly?
I didn't hear that.
I think that was kind of commingled information, and it's like, oh, no, we get the consumer guide, yeah, you get that now.
Yeah.
And if you have any struggle, Tyler, you can talk to Roger, you can talk to Rob Quinn, you know, in terms of, because of course you see had somebody a pen, and it's like, I don't want to be bound to anybody. Well, that's not what the consumer guide is for. The buyer rep agreement is a different animal, right? And where Gina indicates, well, you haven't really earned that yet.
And I totally get that. I've tried offering it to people and they're like, I'm not ready to sign anything yet. And I get that,
Right,
you know, but I was on a team for the last almost 6 years and I've gotten burned a few times because
You did.
I didn't have it signed.
Right.
And the head person, team.
your team leader.
He said, you know, those are a waste of time. You've never, you know, don't even bother. They're not enforceable. It's just a waste of time.
Right,
But at the same time, I have gotten burned and I'm saying, you know, like.
Right.
I should have had this. At least I could have maybe bought something, you know.
right, exactly.
I think it's hard to try.
Right, well, I had procured car speed back at my previous brokerage before I got here. And it was one of the reasons that I actually came here, was because I had procuring cars. We didn't have a buyer's rep agreement. My business model was from 1985. I had no idea what it was. But you know, obviously it was chronicled in Showing Time, which was CSS at the time. And you know, and I got paid, but my broker didn't even go after it till 3 weeks after I left. Right, so no, you actually, depending on what kind of support you have. There is the ability to go after it. Culturally speaking, you know, Keller Williams doesn't necessarily go to get involved in those fights. Yes, you know, there's that question of earning it. Yeah, consumer guide, that's a non-negotiable, you know, unless you're at an open house, okay? Because if for no other reason, and again, I think there was some confusion. Because I could swear I heard Gina say, you know, we wait to sign the consumer guide. Oh, no, we don't. Because it's now a blood sport down at the state. You know, there were over 100 cases already in court as of May of this year. Okay, when they go in and they're looking at audits, it's like, okay, give me your file. And people are getting burned. Where's the consumer guide? Where is it? You know, or where's the pre-approval? You know, it is definitely a question, and I think the state is very well intended, but it is very definitely a question when you get into those issues of you are guilty until you are. So, yeah, so that's a non-negotiable. As far as a buyer rep agreement, I'd like to see more discussion on it, especially now.
I would love to see it.
Now that, especially now that the shift is on, you know, and we're back to doing business. Tyler, you know, you came in when stuff was falling out of the sky. Well, guess what? You're gonna start working for a living. With complete respect, not that you weren't before, but you're going to now, right? So I think now with the shift, I think we would be very well. Our market center would be very well served to have that conversation. How do we get
If
moving?
you can suggest a class or something.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Well, I gotta talk to Schmieder anyway, so that's fine. What do you feel differently about anything today than you did before you walked in here? Mr. Folded Arms, business as usual.
I've always known it, but I think I feel more strongly that follow up and just keeping in touch and that communication is so important.
There is no substitute, right? There is no substitute. And also qualify, right? Buyers kind of have a misplaced sense of security now that they think they're in the driver's seat. more so now than they've been in the last several years. No, they're not. We're not seeing 50,000 over asking, we're not seeing people forfeiting their due diligence anymore, that part is over. But where we had 20 offers before, now we have 34, right? You know, we're still 30% below healthy inventory. So no, sellers are still in the driver's seat. Buyers have more to say now, have more opportunity to negotiate now, but not much. Actually, this is a really good time of year. You know, and I think you guys probably would agree, even if it gets a little quieter out now, people aren't playing games now. Nobody's kicking tires now, Tyler. Yeah, it's like people have, that's exactly, people have someplace they've gotta be, they have to move. Somebody got married, somebody got divorced. Oh my goodness, the rabbit died, we're gonna have children. The kids left, someone died in property tax.
Volume back up. All right, guys, we've got about 5 minutes. There we go. All right, so why don't we start with Elevate and tell us just one of the takeaways from the 4 questions.
Okay, so even just tackling the first one, how has your thinking changed? Once we're done today, Gina, you spent a lot of time discussing the buyer agreement and how to garner the loyalty. Well, so many faces in here in our market center are 3 years old or less. You know, when there was very little that had to happen in order for them to secure business. Well, now we're going to be back to doing business the way we always did business.
Yes.
Right? And so my first stop is going to be talking to leadership once we're done, and having some broader discussion, mastermind, you know, an actual class on how to garner that loyalty, how to secure that buyer, you know, and how to get them to sign, and you know, what that finesse looks like.
That's awesome, because we are going to evolve back to at some point from a stable market into a buyer's market. If you're going to stay in this business, if this is your plan, after like my 25 years, I've seen it shift a couple times, and you will be in it long enough to see that. And right now, the buyers need us quickly if they want in the few houses that are available. When it flips the other way, they don't need us as much, because then there's so many to pick from, and they'll talk to as many people as they want, and they'll have time to do it.
There are 7,000 agents in our 33 county MLS.
Wow.
So there's a lot to pick from. So time is of the essence for us, you know, then, and it's coming. You're absolutely right.
It is. And so making sure that you're the one staying in front of them and getting having a loyalty conversation with them, it will increase your odds of keeping them. It may not be foolproof, nothing is, but it will increase your odds. How about you, Living? Any particular takeaway?
Yeah, we talked about not a tour guide. Love that. Communicate through the showing, communicate through the buyer consultation, communicate through the lull when it slows down a little bit, and about just using some marketing materials.
Awesome.
And by the way, on the buyer representation agreement, you mentioned loyalty agreement. That's exactly what I call it.
Yeah.
I explain, this is a loyalty agreement. This is my
Yeah.
career.
Absolutely. This may sound crazy, but where I was at previous to Keller Williams, my loyalty agreement actually said this. It said, as a buyer, if you're wanting me to do the following, which is what I'm agreeing to do, like making you a priority and showing you all these houses and getting all this information, I even added on there, we practiced this, so talk about having a hard time getting one signed. If I spend all this time showing you all these hundreds of houses, because back then it was a lot of houses, if the commission is less than 3%, you as my buyer are going to pay me the deficiency. So if you find a house that's 2.5%, you're going to pay me the 0.5%. But don't worry, Mr. Buyer, it's not going to come out of your pocket. We're just going to add it on the seller contributions. We were allowed to do that. We're still allowed to do that. So I was never going to make less than 3% on any of those loyalty agreements, because that's how we swung it. There just has to be enough room for closing costs to do it. And because I was doing a buyer consultation at a sit down in the office, it flows because I'm giving you something and in return, you're gonna give me something, which is to sign this paperwork. All right, let's wrap it up with ours. What Kim said was that the tools and models and systems that Keller Williams has in place, she's got a friend in another real estate company who has none of that. So myself, I've been in a couple different real estate companies and I know that Cindy has as well. One of the benefits I feel like we bring to the table as agents who've been elsewhere is we have a full understanding and appreciation of what Keller Williams offers that someone who just started. Now, I'm not saying go check it out there. I promise we can be the people that tell you this. I promise you, I myself and anyone who's been in another company who transfers here has a full appreciation for everything and all of the systems and models and training that we have in place because they don't do any of that even close at other companies. So following those systems and models, doesn't matter what your personality is in the disc. Anybody who's willing to just follow the systems and models can accidentally bump into business. So I will leave you on that today. And we're a minute shy of being on time. So yay. All right, guys.
Thank you,
Thank-
Gina.
Thank you. Thanks for the week. And we'll be back at, I think, Living next week. Yes, Karen?
Yep, we'll be here.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank
And
you,
I'll get you
guys.
those tie downs.
Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.